she was a private chef for uh, some kind of a drug lord or somebody, okay? And she used to travel, she was traveling with them. And these guys decided to do the Bali leg of their trip alone. And they decided to just let her be in Singapore. They said, no, we don't need a chef because they were staying in some nice place. They said, okay, be useful. Go and learn some Indian cooking. Yeah, I'm actually here to learn Indian cooking because my boss's new wife really likes Indian food. And then she takes out a phone and starts showing us pictures of, you know, her life in their hacienda, dude, pet tigers, leopards, fancy cars, guns, all of that shit. Like, I'm like, okay, this is an interesting thing. So I trained the private chef of, I guess, some kind of mobster, mafia boss or whatever. She was a very interesting guest that came in. Yeah.
So I guess a good way to start would be if you could just quickly kind of introduce yourself and what is it that you do?
Sure. My name is Dhruv, and I'm an entrepreneur based in Singapore. I run two businesses fairly different from each other. My first business is an e-commerce enablement firm where I help brands enter Singapore and sell on marketplaces a lot faster and just accelerate their e-commerce journey. My other business is in food. I'm a former professional chef, and I run a private dining business, which also has branches in terms of a cooking class and a catering model as well. Two very different things, but still all run by one person. So that's really what I do. I find my business is crossing over sometimes because I end up selling food on my e-commerce platforms as well. But no, they're two separate things that are equally important to me.
So that I guess that's a good place to start as any. Is it a question of a left brain, right brain uh, trying to coexist when you're running two very, very different businesses at the same time? And the reason I ask the question is that most people struggle to just do one thing well, if at all.
Mhm.
And you've taken up the task of doing two things that have some overlap, and we'll probably dig into it a little bit more. But why these two things uh, over anything else that you could have, should have, might have
Mm.
done?
Right, right. Well, okay. Right brain, left brain is an interesting way of looking at it because I never thought of it that way. Uh, Arjun, my entire journey with food, right? I'll rewind a bit because I started out as a chef. I went to culinary school, got my degree in the culinary arts, but then was not able to make enough money. Okay, and my story is actually it's not like I stepped away from the hotel industry because I stopped loving it or anything like that. I loved it, but I just didn't make enough money. So I ended up chasing a paycheck, and that's why I started doing different things. Um, I ended up working in a call center for a bit. I worked at Google for some time. Eventually, ended up as a founding team of an e-commerce company. And throughout this journey, right, I've always thought that I would stop my tech journey or my corporate journey, let me call it that, at some point, and then I'll start a restaurant. The the interesting thing that happened, I think this was when I was working at Google um, in the early 2000s, was that I really started liking it. I started liking the corporate side of my life as well. And while I did miss being a chef, I I said, look, maybe I can do both of them, right? So I decided at that point that I was going to have some kind of a side hustle in food. Okay. Actually, this predates Google as well. When I joined the call center, then that was probably the biggest leap I took because I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I felt like I'd sold my soul. I was like, dude, this hotel management was expensive, man. It put a big strain to get me through college. And not to mention, like, I went from flipping omelets on a balcony in Munnar, which is a lovely hill station in Kerala. You must visit. I'm sure you've been. But I went from doing that to sitting in a cubicle selling computers at Dell. And that felt like a real betrayal to myself. And then I was like, dude, we got to fix this. So but I still needed the paycheck. So I'm working in the call center, but I'm also cooking on the side. So my side hustles in food have taken many different forms. So it's been a food blog, it's been sending party snacks, something or the other. Right? Just keep that little flame alive. I think at some point, right, this side hustle became a larger part of my life, and it entered a 50-50. And I think just through rigorous understanding of my own productivity patterns and just what pays the bills and what keeps me happy, I managed to hit that balance of doing these two things. I know it sounds chaotic. It is chaotic sometimes, but it is a beautiful chaos that I thrive in. So for me to balance these two things, um, it actually, it feels very nice and feels very comfortable because one pays the bills, one keeps me happy, one keeps me sane. So I think I'm in a good place that way. Yes. Is it hard to run two companies? It is. It is. So at some point, I actually had to merge some of the efforts. My accountants actually don't like this side of it, but we figured it out. So that's where I am.
What do you enjoy about the non-sexy side of the business that you're kind of operating on? So obviously we've talked about
Hmm.
clearly the love for food exudes out of every pore, if I
Right.
could use that term. But when it comes to the other non-sexy pay the bills kind of business,
Hmm.
what
Right.
excites you about that beyond just the paycheck? Is there anything that excites you about it?
Oh, absolutely. I still think e-commerce is very, very fascinating. I think I'm drawn to e-commerce naturally because, it is at its heart core entrepreneurship. I'll give you an example of when I was at Alibaba. So I spent 4 great years at Alibaba. Everyone said you're going to hate it. The culture is very aggressive. It's going to be whatever, right? Honestly, I loved it. I first worked at Lazada, which is their Southeast Asia venture, and then I worked at Daraz, which is the South Asia venture. And I got a great understanding of just how this massive engine works. And I had my aha moment in one of the leadership meetings. And, the room is packed full of SVPs and above, and, CEOs there standing, and everyone's thumping their chest, talking about how we made this happen and we made that happen. And, we drove this much growth and all of that. And at some point, I just stopped and I looked at the slide and I was like, we didn't make any of this happen, man. We made the engine, we made the platform, yes, but ultimately, it was that seller, it was that handful of sellers, the Pareto principle, right? It was that 20% of sellers who really figured out how to use this platform and they made this happen. We are
Mm,
hitting our targets. We are going on this fancy offsite because they did their bit really well. Okay.
mm,
And at that point, right, I just made that decision that, look, I don't want to be the highest paid exec in this room. I don't. I'm not about this ladder anymore. I want to be the most successful seller on the slide. That's what I wanted to be. So even now, if you ask me, right, I'm much more interested by going to a seller summit, where
mhm.
you meet other e-commerce sellers, people who figured out a gap in the market. I went to Amazon Seller Summit recently, and I met this guy who just figured out how to sell that square omelette pan. The Japanese omelette that is rectangular. Dude, it's why didn't anyone else think of this, right? This is a 32-year-old guy who just bought 5 different pans from Alibaba and then tried to figure out what works and then built a brand around it. And now he's the highest selling omelette pan guy on Amazon US. Now, if you think about it, that is fantastic, right? Like, you didn't need any great degree to go and crack that. But the perseverance, the drive to do that, and everyday people succeed at e-commerce. The entire business is built for that, right? And that's what I find fascinating. So that's why, when a brand comes to me and says that, look, we're struggling to sell, or we're getting we want to sell faster and we don't know how to do it, I'm like, dude, there are a lot of things you can do, probably focusing your efforts on the wrong things. So that, clarity that I'm able to bring to the table in terms of saying, like, okay, you've got $500,000 to spend it on these 3 things, right? Start with something as unsexy as SEO, right?
Mhm.
Because that will help your products show up first. Run measured tests. Use AI to scale this thing fast and fail fast and then pull out. But don't go and paint like 5 buses, just to get your brand out there, because it may not work. So those are the kind of things that excite me. I'm very selective with the kind of brands that come in. I usually look for a brand that has some amount of PMF. But then after that, you start looking at how you can really help them execute that marketplace strategy better. And that still keeps me quite excited, and I love applying those learnings that I've gotten over the years from the space to new brands and to new products.
Mm.
And
So maybe then that's the connective tissue between you being a quote unquote small seller yourself,
Mhm.
and the small sellers on, or the well, pseudo small sellers who actually sell large volumes on e-commerce platforms.
Mhm.
Having seen, I'm guessing, a number of them, and you seem to have identified those that, like the Japanese, the
Um,
eggpan guy. Um,
mhm.
what makes a seller good? Like, what do you need to? Because it's not the platform, it's not the technology. They are piggybacking off, platforms like Lazada to get access.
Mhm.
But what makes these sellers different than the other 10 sellers who also try to sell the Japanese omelet square pan?
Yeah.
Is there something in the way they approach communicating with consumers that makes them stand out? Is there a pattern there that you've seen, having witnessed a lot of these sellers on these platforms?
Yeah, great question. I think the answer varies by country because e-commerce is,
Mhm.
you know, it's not a cookie cutter. It's different in every country. Like your consumers are different, behavior is different. This omelet pan may not work everywhere else. But I'll give you from an Asian perspective and try and somewhat put Southeast Asia in a bucket. Uh, See, people believe reviews more than any other marketing. Okay, so that's the first thing I think brands need to wise up and realize that look, let me focus on getting building trust with the consumers, and how you build that trust is not through a series of brand advertising. It is through actual customer feedback and getting your first 100 reviews for a product. Super important. Discovery is also something that is very different in Asia. I mean, your product gets discovered through video primarily and in so many different formats, right? So you can't just be, doing these static listings and having hoping that the algorithm will pick you up. And we are also reaching a point where it's actually quite easy to reach that customer if you know exactly who you're selling to. So I think a
Mm,
lot of people launch products without really understanding the audience. That map the audience first and understand if they're willing to buy. This omelette pan, sure, it's a Japanese omelette. How many people make Japanese omelettes? Turns out in Singapore quite a lot, okay? Because in Singapore, there is a natural affinity towards Japanese culture.
mm,
It is one of the top destinations visited by people in Singapore. People love going to Japan. It's super easy and it's not too much of a flight. And if you just look at trends, right? The number of Japanese restaurants. So people are already familiar with this product.
mm,
If I were to take this Japanese omelet pan and probably try and sell it in, I don't know, maybe India, right? I might have to work a little harder for it. So look at trends. I'll give you another great example. Korean hot sauces. There's a brand
mhm,
called Bulldog that is taking the world by storm right now. But you know which market they launched in before even coming to half of Southeast Asia? It was actually India. And that was
mm,
because the Korean dramas are so popular in India. Korean culture has become so popular. K-pop and all of the bands, the shows, all of that, right? It's a cultural phenomenon. They have a huge footprint already in India. So they went and launched their line of products in India on Amazon. And today they're a multi-million dollar business just in India alone. So if
mm.
you look at that, right, and that is a clear understanding of the audience first, and then deciding where to go and launch. It's very easy. You're a big company. You can go and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go and launch in these 5 markets. But is that the right thing for the business? No. Think about that a little more, a little closer. That's what I would say. So coming back to the omelet guy, he's also done the same thing, right? He may not be sitting on a hot sauce empire or a ramen kingdom, but he's still doing fundamentally the same thing. Is there an audience for this product? Let me size it up. Let me not go and buy a huge amount of it. Let me get a little bit in. Let me run a test, and then let me get some customer feedback and use that and use video and use tools, use influencers to build that trust around your product, and then just go.
So a lot of this is, again, in a way, pattern recognition, right? So where
Mhm.
the pattern here is consumer behavior and their interests and
Right.
needs, which, in a way, using the example that you did about hot sauces, Korean hot sauces entering India, using K-pop as an avenue. Again, not connected to food at all, but again, you need to look at, I guess, cultural phenomenon more broadly to figure out
Mhm.
whether where there are overlaps to kind of piggyback on in that example. Um,
Mhm.
so how does that um, is that common enough as a trait that you see in small sellers? Because it takes a fair bit of um, sales savvy, consumer savvy, understanding of human psychology in a way, the way
Mm-hmm.
people kind of buy and what people like and why they like what they like, and to do
Mm-hmm.
it more abstractly in a world that is so interconnected. So the hot
Mm-hmm.
sauce brand started selling in India. Again, it's a market, unless it was an Indian sitting in Korea trying to get into the Indian market. So
Yeah.
given all these variables, is this more uncommon than it's common? Those individuals that really uh, come at it at the intersection of
Yeah.
understanding human psychology, buying behaviors, cultural, cultural phenomenon, and
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
piggybacking and figuring out a service or product that they can sell into that. In the SME space, in a
Absolutely.
large organization, they're
Yeah.
huge departments, I'm sure, but in the
Sure. Sure.
context of small businesses and entrepreneurs,
Absolutely. It's not like everyone nails it, and there's no formula. The omelette
yeah,
guy is going to he's going to do that for a while, and that trend is also going to taper off. But he's already going to be thinking about the next one, and that
hmm
is just how it works for everyone. Like most e-commerce sellers, it's their 10th or 11th product which actually starts taking off. You have to try. You have to try a lot of them. Um, and again, sometimes it's a cultural phenomenon. Like this thing with India and it's a Korean dramas actually, where some of the dishes, tteokbokki for example, became quite popular in one of the dramas, and that's how Indian kids got familiar with the product, and then somebody decided to go jump on that trend. Um, I'll give you another great example. I met somebody who sells pickleball rackets,
hmm
and a pickleball racket with a little innovation as well. It's a little clip that just goes in. It's the strap of the pickleball racket, but it just goes and clips into the thing. And there's the accessories basically building around the pickleball, phenomenon. Like
right,
if you look at it, we all know that pickleball is picking up, right? And people are starting to go. It's a trend, but it is a handful of sellers who decide to go and do something about it, right? So observing that trend, I don't think comes to everyone. Yes, it is still reserved to a small number of sellers who display this awareness. And again, it is also category specific. Like I
yeah,
don't think somebody who's tracking hot sauces very closely is also going to be tracking pickleball. But that's the
hmm
beauty of e-commerce. It's so wide; it could be anything really. So to answer your question, yes, it is a fairly small number of sellers because once you become the big dog there, right, then you kind of dominate that space. And then the interest for others to come in is somewhat low because you don't want to go and compete because e-commerce platforms are expensive to sell on to begin with. So you're like, okay, fine, I missed the bus on this. Let me move on to the next thing. That's usually
so,
the thinking behind it.
right. I want to just kind of double click on that. So when you say miss the bus, given that
Uh-huh.
someone spotted a pattern,
Uh-huh.
they looked at an opportunity. They probably on their 10th test and the 11th one worked. In this
Yeah.
case, the sauce in India, the
Uh-huh.
pickleball, strap. Um, is it the way you kind of articulating it? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's
Uh-huh.
almost that it's the first mover wins the whole market.
Advantage.
But is that actually true? Because if what prevents someone else from coming and offering the very same product? Because again, the first person saw an opportunity, figured out the market, got in.
Uh-huh.
Is it so binary? Is it a winner take all, where, or the first person take all kind of mentality? And why is that so?
No, no, definitely not the first mover. Like the first mover has the advantage for sure. But it's not like
Right.
the number, you just see somebody then say, okay, walk away from it. If you can see that you can manufacture cheaper, if
Hmm.
you can get this
Right.
better and you can get it to market quicker, that is always going to be your ticket to win. See,
Right.
ultimately it is we got to come back to the consumer, right? If you can get this product in front of the consumer fast and in the best quality possible, right, they're
Mhm.
always going to choose you over that. And price is obviously going to be it. So it's okay if someone's already started, you see someone selling pickleball rackets and whatnot, and you're like, okay, fine, I think I could do this better. Take a crack at it for sure. But you have to be able to see that opportunity. That is the second opportunity. Now if somebody spotted a trend, great, but can I do better than them? Sometimes you look at them, okay, maybe I can do better designs, right? So that is where you'll have to come in. So don't give up completely. That's what I tell a seller. But most of the time, people who are seasoned at e-commerce kind of, will have those bases covered. Depending on the size of the category, then there might be room for two, three players as well. But really depends on the product and and the category really. I'm not saying that yeah it's a winner take all kind of thing, but
Right.
sorry, I also want to double click on this a little bit because see, some things are here to stay. Some people and some products are just fads. Like today, this morning, I saw this handbag that's gone viral. It looks like a chai fan, like a Chinese takeaway food container, but it's a handbag. Okay, it's very cool. It's very cute. It looks exactly like a food container. We should pull it up on the screen at some time. But that's a fad. Okay, and they're going to sell a lot, but they're going to sell a lot just for maybe a month or so. So in that case, like I don't know if you want to go and say, hey, can I make a better version of this? Maybe you just jump on the trend, right? And try and beat them on price
See how long you
perhaps.
can ride it, essentially.
Yeah, that's it. But with something like a hot sauce, that's there to stay. You're always going to want hot sauce. You will always want something to put on top of your ramen. You'll always so that's a place worth experimenting. That's a place that's a category worth pursuing. There could be more players in that for sure.
Right. And in the context of, again, as a small buyer,
Mhm.
um, where and you hear a lot of these stories again from Amazon where you have buyer teams just waiting for SMEs to kind of do all the grunt work, do get to the 11th successful product, and then kind of
Yeah.
copy it,
Yeah.
and then they have economies of scale. They can underprice you, undercut you, get in front of customers a lot cheaper, a lot faster than
Mm.
you potentially can. What
Mm. Mm.
worry do SMEs have when they're trying to create these new market segments where you have large brands? Again, I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know if I'm being too much of a pessimist, but you have teams waiting in the wings, as it were.
Yeah, yeah,
If
no,
this was a movie
definitely.
plot, just waiting
Yeah,
for trends and saying, "Hey, we've got a small SME that's figured this out. We've got enough money to throw at this. Let's just undercut and just make a bit of money for as long as we can, and then find the
yeah.
next one and go." Is that a very pessimistic view that I have, or is that?
No, no, that very much happens, but very much happens. So, look, I call myself an e-commerce accelerator. Okay, a lot of
Mm,
other people also call themselves that. Incubators also call
mm,
themselves accelerators to some extent. And these guys will go and incubate an e-commerce brand, but then they also have to help them grow and take off. So this is a very real thing. I have been contacted for numerous surveys on, hey, what are you guys doing? And like, but that this is a big brand that is shopping for a trend
right.
and is sometimes even looking to get ahead of that. See, it's a very real thing. I think the difference between a big brand that's just waiting to swoop in is that sometimes they lack a bit of agility. Okay.
Mm,
And that is where a little local scrappy seller can come out ahead of them. It's still very much a thing. Like if it's a big opportunity, yes, a big brand could come for you. But again, yeah, it's a that's when marketplaces are democratic, so it's okay. Maybe you play your game right, and then you position yourself as a partner, or just find a way to get in with that. Because manufacturing and see, big brands struggle with so many things, right? I mean, you won't be able to just get your product in, into a country so fast. You can, for you to go and start signing deals and procuring and creating, just doing the branding and all of that, those are things which take time. I'm not saying that they can't do it. There's a good example actually. There's a company called, I'm sure you know Himalaya, which is the cosmetics company, big
mm.
giant from India. They had a really good product called, what was the hangover recovery pill? I can't remember the name, but I think it was called Party Smart. It was called Party
Oh, right.
Smart.
Okay, sounds
Yeah,
familiar. Yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It sounds familiar. Yes, you seem like somebody
Uh,
who's consumed it. Okay.
Party smart.
Party Smart, right?
An ironic name, if anything, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Party Smart was a great product, okay, but doing very well in India. And these guys wanted to take it global because it worked. At the end of the day, it was electrolytes and all good stuff for you to just make you feel good after a night of party. But the product was still branded as Himalaya. And
Mm,
Himalaya as a brand was very uh, old school. Let me put it this way.
mm,
It's a traditional brand, respected brand, but it's still associated with, good hand creams and things like that. And like maybe other wellness products, but not partying, not a crazy night out in town, right? So at that time, there was, like, what do you do? You have a great product, rebrand it, no? Rebrand it, call it something cool, right? Put it into a new packaging altogether. You got the formulation, which is probably the
mm,
hardest part, but they just never did anything with it. Just never moved on it, And there was so much talk, and there would be, discussions. And I know a brand agency also who had, done some work, but for whatever reason, right, the opportunity was there. Okay, they saw that somebody local had started. It's a company called Bounce Back now in
mm,
Singapore that does it, which I think is a cooler name.
mhm,
Or I think Party Smart's a nice name too. But if you look at the two products, right, they're like chalk and cheese.
mm.
Very, very different. They're positioned very differently. Now, you can't imagine a Himalaya going and collaborating with cocktail bars, right? But these guys did it. A brand like Bounce Back was able to do it. And the product looks cool. It's in a little discreet black box, which is probably what you wanted, because at the end of the day, hangovers are slightly embarrassing, right? So, I think that was a good example of a little brand that just figured out that, hey, I can go and win the space. A big giant that saw that, look, we can come and kill these guys. We can produce more than in one day than they can do in a quarter. But could they execute fast enough? Probably not. What probably not? They didn't. Bounce Back is the market leader now. So so that for me, and I think if I'm not wrong, I think at some point Himalaya did invest in Bounce Back as well. But we'll have to check that story out. But yeah, that is some of the stuff that shows the power of someone who's able to execute better and is using agility as their mode. You know, that is it. Local
So
understanding. Go work with influencers. Sure, Himalaya has hundreds of influencers that they work with. There's certain kind of content creators, certain kind of influencers, right? Slightly older perhaps. These guys went out there and did it completely different and
right.
got out of the market.
I think, I mean, it does. I mean, yes, I mean, scrappiness is probably the best way to look at it.
Hmm.
It's also
Right.
the advantage of, well, the one big advantage that you have as an early stage kind of startup and entrepreneur is you don't have the baggage of having to ask 10 people before you make a decision,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it's a good or bad decision, and
Uh-huh.
you're not as worried about the consequences of if the decision going wrong.
Uh-huh.
You can call it being young and stupid. And though a lot of entrepreneurs today are not young anymore,
Yeah.
but at least the stupidity still stays. I think that's an important ingredient in being scrappy.
No, for sure.
Willing to be stupid and failing miserably, and then going again the next day and say, "Yeah, doesn't matter. I'll be stupid tomorrow. Who the hell cares?"
For
Um,
sure, man, for sure. Like, when I was at Groupon, there was this, one of the reasons why I loved that time of my life was because I was allowed to be crazy. I was allowed
mm,
to, be stupid. I did, I used to run I used to run April Fool's gags every year.
mm,
1 year I sold Martian water. 1 year I sold dinosaur eggs. And they were
mm,
complete gags, fake nonsense just to get a laugh out of someone, But they did so much for the brand, and yes, out of the, every thousand, we'd cap it at 1,000, vouchers, and then we'd refund the customer the next day. Hey, haha, big joke. Yes, one or two people get pissed off with us. And one person actually sued us because they got
the
really
dragon
mad. They were
eggs.
like, I want the dinosaur egg, Then I was like, yeah, but it's okay. It's
Maybe they
fine,
sorry to interrupt. Maybe they'll make a movie about it, like the the Pepsi points, the Pepsi Harrier jet uh,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
fiasco, where the guy actually accumulated enough. Do you know the
Yeah, yeah,
story?
yeah, 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 yeah. The
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
he just
So
got too much.
uh,
He
yeah,
flew
I
like a
mean
ridiculous number of times. Yeah, who knows, man. Like, yeah, but those are great. Those are great learning opportunities, I believe.
so what else goes into being scrappy? I mean, in today's day and age, I want to kind of connect back to what you mentioned a couple of, I guess, maybe 10 minutes ago
Hmm.
about using AI, which um, is that something that a small business should use to kind of increase their odds in what is essentially
Hmm.
an unfair fight with
Yeah.
large brands to kind of differentiate? And how do you recommend brands, small early stage entrepreneurs, SMEs, let's
Hmm.
call them,
Yeah.
leverage that practically
Sure.
to kind of build their brand presence and kind of sell essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm going to say the same thing that a lot of people say about AI. Don't use it to create, use it to elevate. Okay, and
Mm,
that applies to e-commerce as well. You can't just say these are four products. Go write listings for me. No, that doesn't work. You've got to educate your AI on what you
mm,
want. So simple thing with us as well. When we launch a new brand, and our brands are quite diverse. Okay, like By cash counter, we sell everything from cooking staples to sustainable swimwear to vitamins. Okay, and it's very hard to
Before you
be in
continue, what the hell is sustainable swimwear?
sustainable swimwear. Sustainable swimwear is swimwear that is made
Stays long,
from.
stays on longer.
It's actually clothing that is made from
Uh,
ocean waste. So
yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure, and heart is in the right place.
Mm,
But point I'm trying to make is it's very hard to find one person who's going to be an
mm,
expert on all of these three random categories. Not to
right.
mention the food staples itself is an entire world, right? But you can get your AI to really build competence on each of these. Another core uh, ticket to win on e-commerce platforms is that in Asia people like to chat with your store. Okay, it's
Mm,
bizarre, but the number of inquiries that come before an order is placed, and it could be anything. It's not something simple like expiry dates, because people are getting smarter, right? Your consumers also have access to AI, so usually they're coming to you with a complicated question. Like, I'll give you an example of somebody asked us about urad dal, okay, which is a black dal when it has the skin on. But when you soak it, the thing turns a little shade of green. Okay.
mm,
Now, that thing looks very, very similar to another lentil, which is green moong. And when they're soaked, they look very, very similar. The water runoff, it's a fairly complicated thing. But somebody hit us with that question. And who's going to answer that, right? Someone's got to research all of this stuff. Who's going to know every damn thing that exists about dal and be ready with an answer? REI is. So a lot of the both Lazada and Shopee actually allow you to plug in your bots into the chatbot on the store itself. So what we do is we actually educate them, we educate our bots heavily on the product itself. Wellbeing
mm,
Nutrition is another brand that I run a store for. Wellbeing Nutrition is in the business of well-being and nutrition with vitamins and a lot of good things for you, but they can get very specific, right, when you're talking about bloating or gut health and things like that. So we make sure that our stores are fully equipped with every question that could possibly come their way. But how does the store get educated? How does our bot get educated? It is by understanding every single thing that the brand does. So that one time process of just ingesting all the learning material. Like sometimes when we're launching a brand, we will ask them for bizarre questions. We ask them for documentation on the product. And they're like, why do you need this? You just need the box and you need some images, right? Like, no, I want the document. I want to know exactly what is selling. So we get that in. So customer support is taken care of. So that automates so many queries for us. The stores also, so the marketplaces measure a store's, you're given a score based on your response rate as well. So our response rate is always 100% because we have a
mm,
bot replying and we have a bot giving you the best quality answer, right? Something that even I would probably have to sit and then Google and search, or even the founders would have to do. So that is one thing that we're using AI for. The second thing is building these listings, right? Now you've got to understand the listing. I comes back to my first thing about who am I selling to?
mhm,
So what happens is that we have a team that really figures out how to market a product to the audience that we are going after. And we
mm,
write that first listing. Okay. We use colloquialisms, we use local languages, we translate heavily and into all the languages, which also helps from an SEO standpoint. And we get a really robust listing in place that is checking all the boxes. But we spend a lot of
mm,
time building that first listing. And then we train our AI to understand that style of writing for that particular brand. Now,
mm,
this is an exercise that you have to do, like, initially. And then, because this is the foundation that you're building for the AI to stand on, right? And then after that, when you come in with a variant of a certain melt or a new flavor or a new dal or whatever it is, right? Or a new kind of swimsuit, it could be shorts now, right? Fundamentally, the AI understands how you want to communicate, what are the boxes I need to check. See, all these platforms, right? Lazada, Shopee, Amazon, they're all different. Just as they're marketplaces, that's the only thing they have in common.
mm,
Everything, including the text limits to the listing to the size of the images, everything is different, right? So get a machine to do that for you. So
mm,
that is the thing. We built the framework. The Amazon listings have to be written in a certain way. We get our operations sorted out using a lot of chat GPT and plugins like that. So those are tools that are available to everyone. I don't have to be a big business to do this. I just have to know how to use this correctly. and deploy them in the right way. So straight off from a discovery standpoint, I know that all the listings that we're going to be that we will produce are going to be top class. There's also going to be a uniformity across it. I know that the store is going to respond in a classy, professional manner, which is not going to sound like just a parrot, because this is material. It's trained. It knows what it's talking about. It's not just saying that, oh, this is your order status, blah blah blah. Right? No, it's gonna. If you have a question about the product, it's going to give you that answer. So I think these are tools that are available, and that this is how AI is helping us just go to market a lot faster. And finally, images, right? Images are a big part of it. Optimizing those images,
Mm.
changing backgrounds, doing seasonal stuff, all of that, building the storefronts itself, right? You can use a lot of, see, you don't have to be that creative. The platforms don't let you be that much creative. Like marketplaces like Lazada and Shopee, there's only that far you can go with the product image, but you can play with backgrounds, right? You
Right.
can add little stamps and things like that. You can, like when there's a seasonal campaign coming out. Singles Day is our Super Bowl, right? Like,
Mm.
11/11, and we can go crazy, right? But at
Yeah.
that time, am I going to be downloading each image and then adding a watermark or like a little logo or whatever to it? No, we can get the systems to do this for us and do it fast. That's the biggest thing. You do it fast. So I hate to say it, but we don't use graphic designers at all anymore. We don't use copywriters anymore at all. And like even when we started this business 3 years ago, there was still some users and still needed resources for this. They do other stuff now, and our
Is this
bots take care
something?
of
Is
it.
this a skill set that most SME small business owners have intuitively? I'd be skeptical if they do. Someone like you with a lot of experience, and that's the reason why you set this up in the first place with Cash Counter. So, is the path, and you hit on two things. One is know-how, which is essentially not only understanding the world of e-commerce, and that I guess is the secret sauce
Uh-huh.
in your context. Understanding the world of e-commerce and understanding consumer behaviors and essentially how to position what content with what audience in what way in
Uh-huh.
each kind of platform.
Yeah.
So is the path for a lot of small businesses to work with individuals like you? Are you seeing that kind of a trend where smaller, I guess, e-commerce accelerators take the place of traditional brand managers or whatever the term is in large organizations, and that service is now offered to small businesses that could not have access to it before because it was too expensive to have an entire team doing now what maybe a smaller shop can do with the help of AI. Are you seeing
Right.
a trend in that direction, or do you see SMEs still doing things the way they always did, and that isn't changing?
No, I see SMIs actually getting smarter.
Mhm.
See, there's a massive drive on, you know, I told you about the getting left behind, right? I missed the
Mm,
bus. That is a sentiment that exists very strongly in the seller community. Oh man,
mm,
I could have done this, but I got left behind. Even this bot I'm telling you about, right? Dude, it's not complicated. I said it's for everyday people to succeed. But you can still miss this bus also, right? So for me, I see more and more SMEs upskilling themselves and figuring out this competence in house.
mhm,
For me, as cash counter, I think we like to work with larger brands that can do this in house, but then also we bring in the country complexity,
mm.
which is the regional expertise, right?
Right.
Like, well, there are some brands from India that are performing extremely well on Amazon, but Amazon India is Amazon India. Lazada
Mhm,
and Shopee are different platforms. Your How do you take that strategy, take that product from here, and then localize it for this market? That is the place where we like to drive value. For me, all of the bells and whistles and all of these things, these are my tools, and I'm very open to sharing with them with everyone, including my clients. We want to do this in house, go for it. This is our
mm,
process. We know how to do this. We do it much faster. Again, I think there is a beautiful simplicity to the fact that we're not very high tech. We're using platforms that are existing and that are available to everyone. It's just a question of knowing which lever to pull when. um, I'll give you another example. When you launch a product from a new market and you want to go and work with 5 influencers, right? It sounds like something you can just go ahead and do. I was at Gulf Food last month, and there were so many brands that just wanted to come and launch their food products on the market. And I said, I want to start selling to Malay population. I want to start selling to Indonesian audiences. Okay, but it's not as simple as just giving the product to that blogger, right? And then, okay, what do you say? Scripting is such a huge part of it.
Mm.
use ChatGPT to write your scripts, right, for this audience, right? What should the influencers say? Those are things where, brands can start stepping up and putting a little bit of effort, and instead of just giving the product, getting the product to an influencer is the easiest thing in the world. Getting them to create something meaningful and say what you want them to say without being too pushy, that's the nuance, right? And that's where these things will come in. So I think those are, those are places where we can add value. And we thrive in that space because, with a big brand, they have the assets, they have great product photos, they have great, they made the ads, they have a vision, they have an ethos, they have like their whole mission, all of that, right? So that, translating that into, for a new audience, taking those values, pulling out what resonates with the local audience, that is the space that kind of excites us quite a lot.
So I think that's a great segue over to maybe something more general than e-commerce, which is
Hmm.
you've through your career you've had the experience of working in very very large corporates across multiple geos. You've and we can maybe get into a little bit more detail on this bit, which is you've kind of run your own kind of F&B businesses in a couple of countries, I think Bangladesh as well. So it'd be good to kind of talk about that story.
Hmm.
And you also now help other brands in other markets enter new markets. So given that you have a fair bit of experience in Southeast Asia and South Asia generally as a region, um, what interesting kind of lessons, insights have you gleaned? I know it's probably like 10 days worth of a conversation there to kind of unpack.
Right.
But what do you find um, interesting or different
Hmm.
about the way um, brands think about entering a market? I think you alluded to a
Hmm.
little bit about that. How
Hmm.
different is that in reality based on your experiences? How big is that gap? Why does that gap exist? People in different countries, you'd assume, think a little differently. Cultural contexts are different, but isn't that something that all people know? When you enter a new market, you should assume as a default position that what worked in one country does not work in another. But you hear more and more stories of people expecting exactly that. The example
Hmm.
you just quoted.
Hmm.
So the question more broadly is that multi-country operations with brands getting into other countries. What interesting stories do you have about that and experiences?
Hmm. I think cultural nuance is something that you can't get by just reading case studies. You do need to have some understanding of local behavior. You either need to have uh, a person or one contact or at least a consultant on the ground who can tell you that, look, this is not going to fly, or
Hmm.
this is a value that is respected in this market. You want to double down on this. I think that foundational step is pretty important. There is a little bit of overconfidence that comes in sometimes when you have really strong product market fit in your home market.
Hmm.
You've got great, you know, you've gotten a lot of, it's a good product and people love you and all of that. And then you start feeling like you're on top of the world and you can just go and unlock a new territory, right? Doesn't necessarily work that way.
Hmm.
I think that humility is something that is a bit lacking. So what happens is you'll have a big brand that'll announce a global expansion after raising a ton of money, and then you realize that they will come in guns blazing, but the product is not working, and then they're getting outgunned by somebody local, and that is that, and they don't take that very well, right? Because like they will try, and that's an expensive experiment because you already committed to it. So you do end up seeing a lot of brands that will come in very aggressive and then try to just buy out the market with this saying that, no, I have this bestseller, it's definitely going to work, and it's just performance marketing. I keep pouring money and then I should win. Sometimes you do, sometimes you do, but most often than not, if the product has not, if you haven't achieved PMF locally, it's not going to fly. One of the brands we represent actually is very big in the men's wellness space. Okay, and that's their whole thing. They came in here and it just didn't fly. and we tried everything we could. All of the tricks, all of the levers I told you, right? Tailor it to the audience. Is there a need for this? Yes, there is a need for it. Translate. We did all of that. We even got some social, boost for it, some validation, but it didn't take off. However, another product took off, melatonin, that this company was also selling. They didn't expect it to sell, and we didn't expect it to sell either. But turns out Singapore has a much larger sleeping problem
Hmm.
than, I mean, and I think just a stack ranking, right? I think sleep is way more important, and there was a much bigger need for this. Now,
Hmm.
it was a bitter pill to swallow, pun intended, but you know, it was something we managed to, the brand was able to say after 2 months that okay, let's pull the plug on the men's wellness piece. But they had an entire, like, this was what they were betting their last dollar on. They're like, oh, we are going to come and be the men's wellness brand in Southeast Asia. Didn't work. But we have that humility to pull out after 2 months of, hard data staring you in the face, saying that, listen, man, this is not selling, but this is starting to show some interest. That is something. So that's a good story. But I mean, there are plenty of examples of brands that have come and just burnt a lot of money, and then they blame it on the market, saying, "Oh, the market's not ready," or like, no, we didn't have a good experience. It was too. Maybe we didn't spend enough time figuring out if this is the right fit for us. That's what it is.
Right. And yeah, you're right. I mean, PMF is a continuing dialogue with the market, right?
Yeah.
Consumers are never stuck in the same situation. They evolve, they change,
Uh-huh.
behaviors change, buying patterns change, tastes change. So unless
Yeah.
you have a two-way dialogue with the market, you really will find yourselves on the back foot to whenever things change, not
Mm.
for your better.
Right.
Um, so I want to connect that back to we've been talking a lot about the work that you've been doing for other brands,
Uh-huh.
e-commerce and other startups and food companies and trying to come into the market. Um, how how has that thinking influenced you building your own business in the food space? So maybe we just talk a little bit about that. Like, what exactly are you focusing on right now, and
Mm.
how have those lessons percolated into the way you're trying to reach your current audiences? Um,
Okay. So I think there's been a lot of learning from my clients. I think with every brand that we launch at Cash Counter, right? There's something new to learn. Sustainable swimwear is a great one because, like, while it may not seem like the most exciting product or something that you need very often, there is an audience for it. and
mhm,
that and how do you sell to that audience? What are the pillars that are driving this? At the end of the day, this is a business that's making money and
mhm,
they have a store and everything. Like, why are people buying? What is intriguing that customer, right? So that is something that we have also learned, we are also learning. It's an ongoing process. I think we definitely see trends. Like, we know what Singapore, like with the grocery stores that we run, we definitely know what Singapore eats. And we know what they like, and we also have a sense of what they're going to buy next. So that often feeds the discussion of uh, whenever I meet my account managers at any of the marketplaces, right? Because as an enabler, we sit right in the middle between the brands and the marketplaces. So the marketplaces also, we have pretty good a good relationship with them, and they're always like, okay, so you're running all of these stores, when are you doing your own thing?
mm,
And I think just because I'm in food myself, um I've usually had my account managers over food and things like that. They're like, dude, when are you going to sell your own product, right? So I think that is something that is still a work in progress. I don't know if I've cracked it 100%, but dabbling in the space, I don't know if this was exactly the question that you were asking, but I get a lot of inspiration on what to sell, or at least like guidance and pointers on what to sell, or at least what not to sell, by being in Cash Counter, by running it, running e-commerce stores for so many people, and then thinking that, okay, fine, if I were to sell my own thing,
mm,
maybe this is what it should be. So we haven't launched an in-house product yet. But who knows? Maybe in the next year or something like that. I don't want to force that decision. We
mm,
have a few odds and ends that we have imported here and there that we've sold. But to do a house brand, because branding is a big deal. It's an
Mm.
expensive affair as well. So we'll see. We'll see. Um, as of now, I think hands are full with the e-commerce business and the private dining business. So I don't know if we'd be launching a new product for e-commerce just yet.
Right. So maybe let's talk a little bit of the private dining business, because
Mm.
again, it is closer to your heart
Uh-huh.
than the other business.
Okay.
Um, what has surprised you most about the experience? I know you love cooking, you love entertaining, um, you love cracking jokes. You got a wicked sense of humor. But what has surprised you most, having done this for the last couple of years?
So I think private dining, I I didn't expect it to be this fulfilling to do, you know?
Hmm.
Like it's a lot of work. Like I get physically exhausted at the end of this. Running, turning your balcony or a part of your home into a restaurant 3-4 times a week is not easy work at all. But somehow I find myself energized at the end of these, you know. And it's very, very it's that crazy combination of doing something you love and then making money as well, like that little ikigai. I think I found that intersection of, you know, what what I'm good at, what the world needs, what I can charge some money for, and you know, that just keep that whole thing going. I'm pretty sure I forgot the last Venn diagram, but you get it. Like
Hmm.
it is that sweet spot that I discovered through private dining. For me, private dining has evolved and it's opened a lot more doors. Like my
Hmm.
private dining started out as a cooking class. Okay, it just
Hmm.
started out with me teaching people how to cook a meal in a very relaxed setting, and that was it was it was largely, you know, it was something I started when I lost my job actually. So just to give you context, I have always had side hustles in food, but this is one that really came and saved me actually, because you know, I have always gambled with startups. And one thing I actually did after leaving Groupon was I joined a company called OFO, which was
Hmm.
very well funded, but was not quite okay on the books. And these guys folded very fast. And we can talk about that company for a long time because, but I won't go into the details. Long story short, I got fired, or the company folded, and we all lost our jobs. I got a little more screwed in the process because I also got deported because of an immigration mess up. And I found myself without a source of income. And Singapore
Hmm.
being so frightfully expensive, I was locked into a lease on my apartment. I had bills to pay, and I was like, okay, this is. And I wasn't finding a job easily. I was the head of marketing there. I was not finding anything. And not to mention, I was locked out of the country for 5 months. So I was at rock bottom when private dining actually came
Hmm.
and kind of saved me. So I started cooking as a way to get my head back on track, just feel a little better, and then start doing something I love. And then the money started coming because I started selling it. And then I think that piece of monetizing what you love, right, is what clicked in. I started selling a cooking class on Airbnb experiences, and that thing really, you know, developed and grew legs and like grew wings and whatnot. And today, what I do is it's a combination. It's a private dining, but there's live cooking, a lot of things involved. I think what surprises me about this business is the number of forms it can take on. Like
Hmm.
what started out as a humble cooking class where I was just teaching people how to make butter chicken and you know, a couple of other things, that today is such a big team bonding experience. I've hosted pretty much every corporate out there. Every team, you know, company has come and booked me at some point or the other. Like, I mean, I've done 10,000 guests in the last 8 years. So like that itself, the number itself is staggering. I never thought it would get that big. And for a guy who's been deported to getting, you know, featured in a full page article in Straits Times, right? I'm like, oh, you like me now, huh? Like, you know, for me, that that journey was like
Hero
pretty
arc, the
crazy.
hero arc, as it were.
Yeah, I like even last year, like I was featured in this thing called SG60, which there was a program on 60 interesting people or something, and I was like, okay, there was a media corp show, and it was great, and I loved doing it. But for me to see that all of this has happened on the legs of my little cooking class, my boring Indian food workshop is what I call it, and that has just opened doors. And like, you know, I've done collaborations. I've managed to enter the F&B industry without really entering it. I have so many contacts in the F&B space. I've collaborated with so many smart, wonderful people, and I've been able to do good quality work. I've done pop-ups. I've worked with restaurants. Built menus. So there is so much more that I've gotten from that business than just a little bit of money, you know. So happiness, brand recognition, collaborations, like so many things have come my way thanks to that little experiment I took. I was like, well, fine, let's try. Big deal. Let's open this cooking class. Maybe nobody will come, but if they come, they come. And I just focused on having a good time. Primarily, I wanted to have a good time. I made sure that the guest had a good time as well, and I think that has been my guiding principle till this day. So yeah, so private dining, very surprising in terms of how much I have personally gained from it. And yeah, I have a lot of fun with it.
So
That
clearly
really,
not boring. Clearly it's not boring. But why boring cooking company?
yeah. So that is a little bit of reverse psychology. This is, I think, where the marketing side of me
Right.
comes in. In fact, I call it the boring Indian food workshop, the boring Indian barbecue party,
If it's anything
because
but.
yeah, but like, in fact, I still remember the first experience I submitted on Airbnb, right? It got rejected because they were like, they reached out to me saying that, look, I don't know if English is your first language, but boring is a negative word. I was like, dude, hang on, hang on, hang on. I know what I'm doing. This is reverse psychology. And I actually had to appeal and I had to convince Airbnb to let me use boring in my experience name. I said, no, it sets the tone, right? It sets the tone for it to be a little, late, right? Like it doesn't take itself too seriously, man. And I think
Mm,
that is what my whole philosophy with food is. Don't overthink it. Take it easy. Food will happen. The first line that I say to people when they walk into any of the hands-on culinary experiences is that, look, the focus here is on fun. Yes, I will feed you. I will teach you how to make a few things, but let's focus on having a great time. Okay, we do that. And I give them a drink and then we start. That's the
mm.
model. It is not a cooking school. Okay. Yes, you will learn something, but you will learn it in the format that I tell you, and it is centered around fun. So that is that has been extremely liberating. So that's why, once you call it boring, like it just raises an eyebrow. If nothing, it'll get you a smile. And this question about why are you calling it boring, it gives me the opportunity to tell this damn story. Yeah, so that's what it is. So, and then along the way, I think the as a marketer, I think I know the value of having a brand and some cohesiveness around it. So when I launched my second experience, which is the Boring Indian Barbecue Party, I could have called it like Tandoor and Tales with Dhruv or something like that. But no, it was I chose to keep it under the Boring Food umbrella. At some point, the business has also reached a point where people don't want to come in, like, oh, they come for the experience, but they just want one or two of the things. Like my lamb
Mm.
chops, for example, are legendary. I work
Very
with,
popular. Yeah.
yeah, very popular. I work with the local butcher here. I got this it's a recipe I cracked in Singapore actually, because I use Australian lamb chops. It's an Indian recipe that's been highly adapted to work with this Australian lamb chop that you get here. So for me, it's like, uh, it's a nice one. Okay. But a lot of people come to the experience, like they've come for a team offsite or whatnot. And then they remember that, hey, dude, I had some amazing lamb chops. So sometimes they just want like 12 lamb chops. They're not going to book the entire private dining experience, right? And then at that point, I was like, this is an opportunity, right? Like if somebody wants lamb chops, why gate it, right? Like why do I have to say that, look, no, you have to come with 5 friends and then make it an experience. I
True.
said, okay, fine, let me open online ordering. Again, I used a very simple platform called Take App, which is a WhatsApp based shop. And so I have a store. I have boringindianfood.com as well, where people can order pretty much everything that's on the menu. And so then that unlocked a catering model of the thing. In fact, I just did one yesterday as well. So the private dining doesn't mean just my house, right? Your house is also private. So
Yep.
so I started expanding the model to say that, look, we can do private dining in your house too. Uh, that's fine. A lot of people have lovely houses in Singapore. People have grills as well. What do you need help with, right? You need help throwing the damn party. You need help grilling. Great. Come, let me take care of that. So out of that, my catering business was born. It's all under the same umbrella. So today, if you ask me, I do private dining, yes, at home in my balcony, but I also do private dining in other people's balconies as well. We've done so many housewarming parties, anniversaries, birthdays, all of that. Sometimes you want to host in your own space, right? And
Right.
that model actually works very well because I've also been able to build a team through this. I still uh, I am amazed at how much talent exists around us, but we don't have access to them. I actually have a team of four elderly ladies. I call them my fiery barbecue aunties. And my fiery barbecue aunties, I've met them through Carousel. Okay, and it just started from there. I needed help at one of my own barbecues, and I was like, wow, this is 50 people. That's a lot for me. Okay, so
Hmm.
50 people. So then I decided to call in some backup. But then how do you start? Where do you do this? I said, okay, let me try. I posted a job on Carousel. One lady replied, and she's an auntie in her 60s. And then, as aunties would be, aunties know other aunties. And then, I brought them in, and I actually did a cooking, like I did a proper teaching course for them, and I trained them on my menu. And today I have a team of four elderly Chinese aunties, my fiery barbecue aunties, who can probably cook my kebabs just as well as me,
Hmm.
maybe even better. And so I love that. I love that. And they are the ones actually who support me. And then, when we get a catering gig, we take the party to people. I have a bartender who works with me. We land up, we send the grill, send the marinated food, and we throw a kick-ass party for people. And is it private dining? It is still private dining. Is it the boring Indian
Yeah.
food workshop? It still is. It is fundamentally the same thing. But being able to package and repackage this wonderful little experience around food, right? That's what keeps me excited.
So clearly, no shortage of excitement in your life. What is the most interesting thing that's happened, or crazy thing that's happened at one of your cooking classes that you can talk about publicly?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think one thing that happened when the experience exploded on Airbnb. Um, so Airbnb has played a big role in my life. Okay, of really taking this to the next level because Airbnb, I don't know if you know, but they can't run their core business in Singapore.
Hmm.
Airbnb homes, their rooms business is not something that they can run in Singapore, despite having a regional headquarters here. So it's crazy. But they actually reached out to me when I started the cooking class, and they said, "Look, why don't you host over here? We have this platform called Experiences." I said, "Okay, fine," and I tried. But like I said, I kept the focus on just having fun and making sure the reviews were good. And one fine day, I get a message from them saying that, "Hey, Dhruv, congratulations! You just broke a record on Airbnb. You currently, as of yesterday, last night, you have the highest rated culinary experience in the world." I was like,
Hmm.
wow, that is crazy. So I had a perfect 5-star record, and it hit 100 reviews. I was like, okay, that's nice. And I was like, okay, great. So, like, do I get a T-shirt or something? Like, what's the thing?
Something you
Well,
called me. There better be
yeah,
something
they
behind the
called
phone
me.
call.
Yeah, yeah. And so they were like, no, 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 no. We'll actually run a campaign around you. We'll do a marketing campaign for you. I'm like, okay, great. Marketing campaign sounds nice. But I wasn't prepared for what they did because they sent a 14-member crew down from LA and they shot a commercial and they did a whole thing on me. And while the commercial only aired in a few places, I'll send you a link to it's on YouTube. But they just gave me a crazy amount of traffic, man. And I was on the homepage and the algorithm really rewarded me. So I got 2 years of bookings in advance. Okay. And
Wow.
Airbnb has travels, right? Travelers like coming into the country, they book in advance. So they said, open your calendar. That's all I had to do. And so I said, okay, I'm taking I opened the calendar and then they filled the calendar. I think that was a dream because like I couldn't imagine that volume of bookings to ever happen. That really exploded. And then I had some, when media picked it up, of course COVID came and derailed this whole thing for a bit. But then when Airbnb pivoted to online experiences, I also pivoted along with them because by then they'd become a strategic partner for me. Like, I almost thought of Airbnb as my co-founder, in this
Mhm.
thing. And then the online version exploded as well. So for me, it was a thrilling ride. And I think out of that, when the media exposure came, I started getting some interesting clients as well. Some celebrities, when you have to sign an NDA and you can't mention that the client has come to your. I was like, okay, that was interesting. But wait, I'll tell you about. Forget the celebrity one. I actually had.
You have NDAs, yeah. So let's let me get you in legal water right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. But I'll tell you a fun one about. I had a lady who came in and she was a chef herself. Okay, and and after a while, you're chatting. And this was it was a mixed group. I had some people from Argentina, and this lady was from Colombia.
Hmm.
And so I asked her, so what kind of cuisine? And she's like, no, I cook everything. I was like, okay, great. And then I said, do you have a restaurant? And she's like, yeah, no, I'm a private chef. I said, wow, that's very cool. And then we started chatting and it started going on. I said, so what are you doing in Singapore? She's like, yeah, I'm actually on a work trip. I said, so you're a private chef on a work trip? And then the story started getting, and she's like, okay, fine. I'm a private chef. She was a private chef for uh, some kind of a drug lord or somebody, okay? And she used to travel, she was traveling with them. And these guys decided to
Oh.
do the Bali leg of their trip alone. And they decided to just let her be in Singapore. They said, no, we don't need a chef because they were staying in some nice place. They said, okay, be useful. Go and learn some Indian cooking. So he said, yeah, I'm actually here to learn Indian cooking because my boss's new wife really likes Indian food. And then she takes out a phone and starts showing us pictures of, you know, her life in their hacienda, their house and all. Dude, like, I mean, this is the stuff which I didn't think it was real, but, you know, pet tigers, leopards, fancy cars, guns, all of that shit. Right? I'm like, okay, this is an interesting thing. So I trained the private chef of, I guess, some kind of mobster, mafia boss or whatever, right? And yeah, she was a very interesting guest that came in,
Yeah,
and she
you
had
better
some,
hope you
and
don't
I
get any
thought,
complaints. You better
yeah,
hope you don't
yeah,
get any
yeah, yeah.
complaints coming back. They know where you live.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So that was a very interesting, fun one. Um, I'll tell you another one, because this was deeply humbling for me. I actually had a blind person come to the cooking class once, and I was so surprised, man. I was so surprised to because like I was like, "You can you cook? Like, I mean, how are we gonna do this? This is there's knives and there's hot oil and like there's cooking." But this gentleman was, you know, just showed that like he's like, no, my other senses work very well, and you just have to go a little slow for me. But I've done this before, and that I cook, and he kept feeling everything. I'm telling you, Arjun, this was like something I never thought I would do, and it turned out to be one of the most rewarding experiences because we cooked an entire meal and we didn't skimp or didn't change any step at all. And I'm just amazed at how he managed to pull that off and how we managed to do that. So yeah, I had one like that as well. Great experience. I had a corrections officer from Australia who came in, and he was running a juvenile home.
Hmm.
And he said, and he had an interesting one as well. The boys in the home would fight about every single thing, but he said food was the one odd thing that they bond on, as the only thing that you could probably get them to do together. So he came, and then that we cooked the meal together, but then we ended up talking about other things, and I ended up creating a little menu for him as well, that he could go and get the boys to do simpler stuff, but like things that like he was trying to make these troubled youngsters bond over food, and he knew that food was working, but he wasn't a chef himself, and he just
Hmm.
wanted some help. So I mean, I've had some fantastic conversations unfold, and some very interesting people come in. There's a gentleman by the name of Prem Vatsa. You look him up. He's like the Warren Buffett of Canada. His private jet broke down in Singapore, and they had to go and get a certain part for it. So he was stuck here for 3 days, and he decided to make a little holiday out of it. But then the crew, his private jet crew, actually came to do this, and I got to hang out with them and then understand a little bit about this other kind of flying that also happens. I've never been on a private jet, but I had two pilots and a stewardess, who came in, and they just had the greatest stories in the world. So I feel like I have met so many interesting people through this. Like the list goes on. The list goes on. I once had a lady who knocked on the door and she was 9 months pregnant. I was like, "Whoa, you are rare." I mean, are you sure you want to stand and cook? And I remember she had asked for one very specific thing to cook. She wanted something called gongura chicken. And I
Hmm.
was like, gongura chicken? Because one of the things I put in my listing, in the bottom of the listing, is that, by the way, if you're not interested by my boring menu, here's my Instagram. Go and take a look. And if you want to cook something from there, we'll make it happen. I have never had anyone who actually followed through on that. Okay. But this
Hmm.
lady actually went and like, she like, you said that I can choose from your Instagram. I was like, yeah, nobody does it, but okay. But then she had like scrolled like 5 years into my feed and found this Gongura chicken. And I was like, wow, okay, fine. I mean, I guess I've advertised it, right? So I have to do it now. So, and then she pinged me the night before the class saying that, hey, did you get the gongura? And gongura is like it's a leaf, it's a leafy vegetable. It's sorrel leaves. And I was like, yes, I got it. And, but when she showed up, she was like very, very pregnant. And I was like, okay, turns out this poor lady had been transferred to Singapore smack in the middle of her pregnancy, and
Hmm.
there was a visa issue. Her husband was, was having trouble getting in, so she was by herself in a lousy guest house. Okay, in some kind of company accommodation, and she was craving something that she used to eat as a child, or like I think back home order. And she just wanted to eat gongura chicken, and then but she was so heavily pregnant she couldn't just walk into any old restaurant. So she went online and she asked, she's like, I'm really craving a gongura chicken. And then somebody suggested, said, you know what, there's this crazy guy who does this cooking class. He'll probably cook it for you if you ask him. If you ask him. But then she was like, how can I just ask this guy to come and just cook food for me, right? Then she found that I have a cooking class. So she booked a session with me and then asked for this thing.
Just to have gongura chicken.
Just to have gongura chicken. And dude, that was one of the most satisfying experiences as well, because not only like, did you come and find me, and like this suddenly, this was not just gongura chicken. I had to like really make it. So I said, okay, you know what? He has a big glass of lemonade. You sit down, okay, and we're going to cook gongura chicken. And so that's what she did. She had a nice drink, and then she helped as well. But we made it a really, really chill, laid back experience. And yeah, she was just we made gongura chicken. I packed some to send it back. It actually was such a nice experience because once her husband finally got into the country, um, they actually came back, and they eventually became friends. So very rewarding experience. She wanted to give me a gift at the end of the whole thing, and for me, the gift is the review. Usually, that's enough. But she
Hmm.
also gave me her grandmother's peanut chutney recipe. So
Hmm.
yeah, and that is something which actually I love, because not only is it a fantastic peanut chutney recipe, but it just makes this experience so much more rewarding for me. So even now, when we're having dosas, and we're thinking about what chutney to make on the side. It's usually like, do you want peanut chutney or do you want Bindu's peanut chutney? Sometimes we make Bindu's peanut chutney
Hmm.
because it's a great recipe. I ended up posting it online, and it was so for me. This is, yes, it is 3 hours where there's a meal that you've cooked together with somebody, but then it keeps giving. It's a gift that keeps giving. It goes on. Every time I cook Bindu's peanut chutney, there's this wonderful memory associated with it. There's so much positivity. And heck, even gongura chicken, man. Like, I can't, it's my recipe. Yes, I cook it a lot, but I can't not think of this guest when I make that dish as well. So, tons of stories that have come out of this business.
So I think, I mean, no shortage. I mean, 10,000 people having experienced your classes, and clearly a wide range of interesting experiences for you.
Mm.
I guess front and center.
Yeah.
Um, you're also a youngish father of two. How does that? Yeah, youngish. Well,
Youngish.
yeah, we
Yeah.
how is that third job? Well, fourth job. You've got twins,
Mhm.
so fourth job played
Yeah.
into kind of juggling these two balls that you already have up in the air.
Yeah, I think everything happens in twos, I feel, like we've got in my life at least, like, I have two dogs, I have two businesses, and now I have two babies. It's been great fun. It's a lot of work, but it's also twice the fun. I take immense joy in sharing what I'm doing with the children, like food, like that's a big thing. Cooking something new, understanding their palates. They're twins, but they're very different fraternal twins, and they're also two very different people. I feel like so, understanding what gets each of them going. So I'm loving fatherhood, thoroughly enjoying it. Mm, yeah, it's a busy life, but I think the entrepreneur life, right,
Mm.
is also, this is one of the big benefits of it. I really feel like the biggest plus is the time that I have. E-commerce runs. It's a machine that will run well. It needs to be looked at, and initially when you're starting, when I'm launching a brand on cash counter, when I'm launching a whole slate of new products, that's a lot of work. But then after that, that tapers off. And then the optimization phase comes in. And there I have some people. So, so that gives me a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of breathing room. With the private dining, that business is as flexible as it gets. I've actually
Mm,
just moved house. I finally outgrew my apartment. I was living there for 12 years. I only moved because I didn't have enough place. So I just moved into a new place. And my private dining is now on a very, very limited schedule.
mm.
But because that business itself is so flexible, right? I'm still able to do the home delivery, the food delivery piece of it. I'm still able to do content, and I'm still able to stay at home and look after the kids. So I'm going to go give them lunch after this. It's good. That flexibility that the entrepreneur life, or it is my entrepreneur life, affords, right? That is something I really find a lot of value in.
So what's on the menu for the kids today?
They are getting a really nice mutton curry. Actually, they're going to eat a family recipe. It's something called Gonda wala meat, and
Mhm.
Gonda is a small town in UP where my great grandfather came from, and yeah, it's a really nice mutton curry with lots of marrow bones because, they're going to get lots of, at this age, getting that protein and getting all the good fats into them is important. So they're getting a
Mm.
nice, hearty mutton curry and rice is what they're doing. A little bit of veggie on the side because my wife wants it there. No, but it's, it's
Mom needs
important.
the veggies to go in. Yeah,
Yeah, mama.
I can hear mums all around the world
Yeah,
echoing the
yeah.
sentiment.
Yeah. But no, that is their lunch. Little bit of recipe is nice. Little bit of it's a little heavy on pepper, but we've been having rainy weather in Singapore, so
Mm.
a little slap of pepper is a nice thing to have to keep those colds at bay. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So, I mean, thanks, Dhruv. I mean, it's been an amazing conversation. I think probably probably the one of the few people I can talk to ROAS and garam masala in the same conversation, and not make it sound very strange at all. But it was wonderful for you to take the time. I'm sure there's a plethora of interesting stories. We'll probably do another one of this somewhere down the road when you've launched your brand, chosen not to launch a brand, pivoted to your fourth business or third business or somewhere in between, and then we can take it from there.
Thank you so much, Arjun. I appreciate you reaching out, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Always happy to share, and thanks for listening to some of the madness. Maybe it gives you a sense of what this chaotic life is about. But yeah, thanks. Great questions, and I really enjoyed the chat. And all the best with this series. I think this is creating content is not easy. I've tried and failed at it a few times, and then I've started again. It's not easy. Content creation is a journey, but you'll just get better at every one that you do, and that's
Yeah,
just
I'm
how it
starting with
is.
the easy bit, which is talking to really interesting people. I find that
Mhm.
that's less weight on my part. I can figure out the rest.
You know,
uh,
interesting people are interesting when you ask them interesting questions. That's really it. The question can be very boring and bland, and then you could just talk about that. But the questions are really what make the conversation worth having.
mm.
So thanks a lot, and yeah, I
I
look
will put
forward
in
to
your
seeing this.
details. I think you're probably already a very, very popular person in Singapore. So the two, three
Yeah.
people that get to watch this would be two, three more that we can add to that list. I'm being facetious, obviously. But yeah, I'll put your details down. People can reach you on, I guess, LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter. You're pretty much on every social platform, I would assume, at this point.
Yes, I'm called Mad Onion Slicer everywhere, from Instagram to GitHub. Okay, so that's my thing.
Done and done. Done and done.
All right.
Catch up soon, man. Lovely
Awesome. Thank you
speaking
so
to you.
much.
Cheers.
Take care,
Bye.
man. Bye. Bye.